All right, so in this section, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at means and proportions and see how we can find these two statistics given either a sample survey, an observational study, or an experiment. So in this section, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some data and see how we can use the data to find the sample proportion or the sample mean. Now remember that sample proportion and sample mean are going to be considered statistics because they came from the sample. And the point of finding a sample mean or a sample proportion is so that we can use this sample mean or proportion to estimate what the population mean or proportion is. So we're using the statistic, the sample mean or proportion, to estimate the parameter or the population mean or proportion. So let's take a look at the first one. In a survey of 700 mothers and fathers were randomly chosen and asked about the importance of playing a musical instrument for boys and girls. Of the parents interviewed, 500 said that boys and girls should have equal opportunities to play musical instruments. What's the sample proportion? So number one, let's just review the fact that this is a sample survey because we're given a survey to 700 mothers and fathers. And we are not imposing any sort of treatment. We're just simply asking a question. We want to know what is the sample proportion. Remember that your population proportion symbol is just P and your sample proportion symbol is P hat. And it's important to use the correct symbol so the people reading your information know whether or not your answer is from a population or a sample. Okay, to find the sample proportion or P hat, what you're going to do is take the total number in the sample, which is 700, and the numerator is going to be the number of people that answered the question in the direction you were looking. So we were checking to see how many say that boys and girls should have equal opportunities to play musical instruments. 500 people answered yes to that question, so that's what goes in the numerator. And you always want to make sure that when you do this, you simplify and find your decimal answer. So your decimal answer here is going to be 0.71. Now, what we can do with this is that we can then use this to estimate the population proportion. So we can say, since we took the sample and 71% said that boys and girls should have equal opportunities to play musical instruments, then hopefully the population proportion would also be about 71%. Now remember, since it's a sample, it could be different the next time. Let's take a look at this next example. A study was conducted to find out how many college students support a crackdown on underage drinking. The student finds that 55% of college students support the efforts to crack down on underage drinking. You want to know if the sample proportion holds true at the local community college. To determine this, the administration at the community college sends out a survey to 150 randomly selected students. 83 say that they support the efforts to crack down on underage drinking. What is the sample proportion? What is the population proportion? Now remember, the population proportion symbol is P. The sample proportion symbol is P hat. Now we have two numbers here. We have this 55% and we have this 150 randomly selected students. Well, this 55% here is actually going to be your population proportion because this is 55% of all college students support the efforts to crack down on underage drinking. So that's my population proportion. We're checking to see if our local community college is the same. So our sample is the 150 students and the 83 that say they support the efforts to crack down on underage drinking. So to find that sample proportion or P hat, you're going to take your total number in your survey, 150. Okay, that was your total. And then how many students support it was 83. So 83 out of 150 gives me 0.55. That's my P hat or my sample proportion. Now notice this does not always happen, but our sample proportion in this case was the same as the population proportion. Now, how can we use sample means? The principal at Jack Britt High School wants to find out, on average, how many students are absent each day. To do this, he randomly selects 10 days out of the year and looks at how many students were absent on each day. On those 10 selected days, the following number of students were absent. So 15, 32, 12, 8, 15. So this is how many students were absent on a given day. We want to know what is the average number of students absent on a given day. So in keep in mind here, the population mean symbol is this Greek symbol mu. The sample mean symbol is x bar. So x bar means we have an average. Now, what I want you to understand is it's also important to make sure you use the correct symbols here so that the reader knows you got your information from a population or from a sample. Here, we got it from a sample because each day is a sample. So how do we find the sample mean or x bar? We're going to add to get a total. So we're going to add 15 plus 32 plus 12 and then divide by how many days. So we had 10 days. So in this case, x bar is equal to, so this is the total number of students absent is your numerator. I'm adding the total number of students absent, 15 plus 32 plus 12 plus 8 plus 15 plus 17 to get a total in my numerator. And then I'm going to divide that by 10 because that was on 10 days in order to get the sample mean. So now I can say x bar is equal to 18 in order to answer the question. The average number of students absent on a given day is about 18. We can then use this sample mean to estimate the population mean number of students absent each day at Jack Britt High School. Make sure that you take a minute and try the You Try video.